Joining us now to talk about it, Kiron Skinner, a Campbell Research Fellow at the Hoover Institute and a Reagan biographer. Kiron, it's so good to have you back on America's Forum.
Thanks for inviting me.
Kiron, Senator McCain was outlining what he believes to be the decision-making dynamic absent real military representation in the White House. Will Ashton Carter move into a situation where he actually has a say on pressing national security issues?
I would hope so. And what Senator McCain has described is actually quite frightening, if indeed it's true at the depth that he presents it, that a group of White House political operatives are in effect helping to decide national security policy. I believe that Ash Carter, is well placed to be an inside fighter because he is known as such over his 3 decades in the defense community, both inside and outside of government. You know, he began with President Clinton working on what was an important issue at the time and still remains of significance, and that is denuclearizing Russia and some of the former Soviet bloc countries. He has a kind of sober understanding of what it means to be a great power, having worked with Russia and having helped develop security relationships with former Eastern European Soviet bloc countries that later became part of NATO. So I am hopeful, given that he understands at least that part, the Russia equation. Now, on to the broader Middle East. He's going to have an uphill fight with the White House that has had a very cautious policy toward ISIS, toward Syria, Afghanistan, its recent reversal of its policy of a rapid drawdown. We will now have 1,000 more troops in Afghanistan than the President Obama had said back in May. So he is going to have to try to fight against the administration's approach of doing almost nothing in the Middle East and just waiting for it to go away. That will be the biggest part of his bureaucratic battle in the months ahead.
We've got about 4 minutes left, Kiron, and I'm very curious about this. I can understand Secretary Gates staying as a kind of a signal of bipartisan continuity in the transition from the Bush to the Obama administration. But I'm curious because there were other junctures where Ashton Carter, as an Undersecretary of Defense, could have been elevated to the top job. Why was he passed over earlier, and what changed this time around in the selection process?
That's a tricky question, and I think it's not clear what all of the reasons are, but it appears that Carter has had some difficulty with the White House team in the past as well, and there are reports that he and Susan Rice have clashed. I don't think that will necessarily stop. But given the complexity of what's happening in the international system, I think some of these forces, those various competing forces within the administration, will find themselves coming together. I don't believe that Carter was an early pick for the administration because there were other people who were much closer to the president, like Jay Johnson, who may have been an excellent choice as well. But he's always been on the short list. And he emerged this time, I think, because he has both hawkish and more dovish credentials. And he is liked on both sides of the aisle, including Senator McCain, who remains deeply concerned about how the policy is being developed in this administration.
Kiron, a little less than 3 minutes remain. The whole notion of hearings and confirmation in the Senate probably doesn't happen until the new Senate. And could it be held up even longer because of this issue involving the president's unilateral action on illegal immigration?
I don't think so. Everyone understands in Congress the importance of having a fully functioning national security team, which means having a confirmed Secretary of Defense. If legislators were to try to use immigration or other issues as a way to hold up Ash Carter, I think it's to the detriment of American national security.
Kiron, you recently penned an op-ed piece for the New York Times. What was the central thought you were trying to express with that piece?
One in particular is the fact that we don't have a doctrine or a grand strategy to deal with the various challenges facing the United States and the world. In particular, We haven't addressed what it means to be in a global war on terror in the Obama administration. And I'm concerned that the secretaries of defense either haven't been capable of developing such a strategy and a doctrine, or they were not allowed to because of what's going on in the White House. It will be important, I think, in the final years of the Obama administration for the Obama doctrine to mean more than exiting wars at all cost. And Ash Carter, I think, is well placed to develop a grand strategy that in particular stakes out America's objectives in the global war on terror, simply because he has to. The world demands it. And his prior SecDefs actually set him up nicely to do so. Just this past weekend, Secretary Hagel was in Afghanistan working hard on the terms of the U.S. agreement to remain in that country at the strength of around 10,000 troops in 2015. And so I think Carter is going to have a better job, not necessarily an easier job, but it's clear what he needs to do. And that is to be able to develop a national security doctrine that will help guide the United States in picking and choosing among the numerous international conflicts of which we need to become involved with.
Fair enough. We will have to leave it there. Kiron Skinner, we thank you very much for your time and your insights on just what may transpire with Ashton Carter there as Secretary of Defense at the Pentagon. Thanks very much. America's Forum will continue following this Newsmax Now update.